Hello, good day, and welcome to a PMP clinic. It is a ad hoc, rather impromptu. I'm running this clinic to address some concerns from some of my students with regard to the alignment of the new PMP exam syllabus to the 2021 exam format. Now, for those who are new, probably your first time wanting to know about what is project management is all about, I think this is a very quick primer. I'm trying to do this in bite-sized formats where I will first provide an introduction about project management as per according to the Project Management Body of Knowledge 6th edition 2021 exam format. And thereafter, I will talk on the 3 domains. Each of them I will segregate or split them into different bite-sized video clips. Or if you want to, we can have it at one complete video that may last about 90 minutes or so. Okay, so without further ado, let me share my slide. I'll be providing you a link to these course material or the material I want to provide you on the screen. Okay. Share this slide with you. This is known as the alignment syllabus, but it's good for those who are newcomers, just wanting to know what is project management is all about, right? So let me just start off with this, right? In the concept that we are adopting for the 2021 project management professional examination. So to the students, I would like to highlight to you, there are actually a Venn diagram that's been presented here. And process is actually the subset, is a smaller subset of a larger set of subsets. Okay? So processes are things like SOP, standard operating procedures, whereby there are 49 processes pertaining to the Project Management Body of Knowledge 6th edition. So there are 49 processes that covers 10 knowledge areas and 5 process groups, which you will see shortly. So it is these processes, right, that we would ensure that we manage, execute, administer basically processes. By whom? By the people or stakeholders. In this case, the people we're referring to primarily would be the project manager and the project team members. Now, bear in mind, as far as project managers are concerned and the project management team, I would like to explicitly mention this to you, that the project manager, what does it do? Manage and lead. Okay, it's basically to manage and to lead. Whereas the project team are basically the subject matter experts in the domain that this project is in. So they are the specialists. They are the know-hows. Now, it's possible that a project manager may not have the technical or domain skill. It's possible. So you won't be surprised, for instance, a project manager who has a background in IT projects can be approached to lead and manage a project that has nothing to do with IT, but it's the skill set, okay, the portable skill set that transfers all kinds of domains, which is in this case project management skill set. Not project skill set, because project skill set is pertaining to the domain, the specific domain. So the subject matter experts that we have here, for example, okay, let's suppose you are doing a pharmaceutical project. You're formulating, you are work a project related to pharmaceutical chemistry. You're producing a new vaccine, for example, we're referring to the COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, so a project manager basically uses his or her project management know-how managing projects, leading the team to deliver the results, the business result, which is actually the business environment result. That's what we're looking at. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong spelling here. So I'm going to correct that word, environment. So what we are looking at is that we're using the people, we bring them in. The subject matter experts are the specialists in the pharmaceutical. They're the ones who do the formulation, clinical tests, and everything, you know, and whatever else they would have to do, right? We as a project manager, we're able to lead and manage and see results, look at the KPIs, making sure the timeliness, as well as make sure everything is within the quality constraints or compliances or the cost or budgetary constraints or requirements, okay, within the scope that has been identified and we have agreed on. So that's what a project manager does, and what a project management team member does, okay? So basically, the subject matter experts are the ones who get their hands dirty. Now, it is to fulfill a bigger purpose, which is actually no one runs a project without any strategy, without any purpose. What's the purpose? What's the end game? What's the objective? It's to fulfill a certain business objective, right? It could be based on a commercial value at the end of the day. Or it could be, for example, if you're doing a CSR or NGO related kind of project, your business value is not commercial value, but of one that improves people's lives, okay? Change community, impact communities, and so forth. That is your business as per se, business value. The passion is drawn in for. But in commercial ones, of course, it will be the return on investment, right? That the customer, in this case, the client, we would use the word customer in PMBOK, would accept, you hand it over, you accept the deliverables of your project, whether it's a product or a result or a particular service. So, which brings me to talk about what is a project? A project is actually work, right? It is actually work. There are two kinds of work. One is called the project work, and the other one is called operations work. It's basically a combination of these two, a hybrid of the two, project work, operation work. So it's typically the project goes out first to come up with a value proposal, a value delivery at the end. That's what I call it. Now you can see that we are moving outwards now to the value delivery part of it. The project delivers value, business value in a business environment through people using processes to follow in a systematic, compliant manner. So this is how we're going to read the Venn diagram. So the project value is being created, and that project value needs to be maintained and operated upon. So a project has a definitive timeline. It has a start, it has a finish. So that is one of the KPIs, one of the metrics is to finish the project within X date and finish by start at X date and to finish at Y date. Right? Thereafter the Y date, the operations people will take over and will continue to use the value or the generated value from that project until its end of life, which we don't know when. So we are not bothered as much with the operational work, but we are focusing specifically on this scope, on this domain, which is the project domain. Now, every new work would come with new expectations and new risks, especially project work we have not done before. So it is pretty obvious that projects would have a higher degree of risk. We talk about, now there are two kinds of risk actually. Risk actually consists of two. One is called a threat risk, which we are so fondly wanting to manage. And of course, the other one is called opportunity, which is what I call something that helps in addition, that provides even more value. So basically risk is simply said an event that may happen, okay, may. So it's anything between 1% to 99%. So that may happen can be a threat related risk, or it could be a may happen of an opportunity, which is a positive risk, which is something that we welcome. So our managing of project risks are, well, surely it's been centered towards the threat risk, to manage the threat, to minimize threat. And of course, on hindsight, we are also maximizing opportunities that come along the way. So let's take a look at threat as being the primary risk management initiative. So in projects, things that are new, you will expect a lot of uncertainties, right? Uncertainties breeds risk. And risk is actually an event that may happen for good or for bad. So of course, we want to look at for bad is that you will have a high level of risk, threat risk in a project. And interestingly, threat risk decreases over time. So if I were to draw a graph, a threat risk being high here, it would reduce. As you draw to closing, the risk is over because you're handing over to the customer already, right? So at the beginning of the project, the risk is the highest. The threat risk overall, I'm talking about overall, not just only commercial risk, not only just budgetary risk or schedule risk. I'm talking about generically, the threat risk is the highest at the beginning, right? And it draws to a minimum, or rather to zero at the point of handover. So since risk is so great at the beginning, at the beginning part here, there is a lot of, I would say, process of regulating or stabilizing. We would want to use informed data rather than guessing, right? We want to have statistics rather than having qualitative data. If we have quantitative data, which is statistical data, right, factual data, it's much better than having qualitative data, which is based on one's expectations, one's know-how, or guessing, based on experts. So if you have quantitative data, it's always the best that we move. So that's basically what we have. We are delivering value, right, through a project, and give it to the operations people. The operations people will maintain that value delivery until it's no longer needed anymore. So our focus is basically on this area called project management, this part here, okay, on the project itself. Moving on. Now, the new syllabus actually has moved away from formally it was this, where it was published as the 49 processes entirely. There are five process groups. You can see that's initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. That's called process groups, right? Spaced by timing, basically from the beginning to the end. And of course, running across on a vertical, it will be the knowledge areas known as integration, where everything comes together, scope, time, formerly was called time, now it's called schedule, cost, quality, resource management, inclusive of physical and human resources, communication, risk management, procurement, and lastly, the stakeholder management. So in total, there are 49 processes. And something that we would like to highlight to you is that at the commencement of a project, right, during the start times, what we will need to do is that we need to have what we call a project charter. So a project charter is akin to, it's like a birth certificate of a project. Without having a project charter, it means this project is not recognized, not formally recognized. As such, the sponsor will not be giving you the money. So it will be the sponsor who will be signing off, or senior management. Details in the project charter is usually very, very simplistic. Something maybe you draw it from the contract. If you're a vendor, you're drawing from contract that you assign with the customer, or if it's an in-house project, it will be the terms of reference, start date, finish date, what are the KPIs, what are the, some people call it the SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, as well as time constraint. Those are called SMART. Objectives, measurable objectives. If you cannot measure your project objectives, right, don't bother doing it. It must have measurements. Measurement means here a numerical number against a metric. For instance, let's take an example. Vaccination, right? We talk about vaccination. Now, going by the details from the mass media, we are looking at something like, let's give you an example. Like 20 days, we have covered, let's say 200,000 vaccinations. Now this I'm talking about single dose vaccinations. So 200 days, 20 days, 200, which means 1 day, okay, we are looking at how many? We're looking at 10,000, right? So 20 days, 200,000. So when are we going to get 1 million? So there will probably say that's 100 days, right? So if you're going to do it for the whole of Malaysia, let's suppose putting 20 million. You're talking about what? You mean 100 days for 1 million, right? So if you have 20 million, there'll be 2,000 days. And 2,000 days will be definitely more than 3 years, right? Maybe about 3 years, right? And if our timeline or the KKM timeline or the milestone is that we must have it in 1.5 years, for example, for that's it, for 20 million. So we backtrack. And we would have to look at, okay, we have created a project charter. So one of the measure objectives is we have to upsize, increase the number of workspaces. I call it workspaces. It can be hospitals, government hospitals, it can be private hospitals, or it could be a venue whereby vaccinations can be taken place in controlled environment. Okay, within the scope of KKM, right, and compliances and so forth. So I call it workspaces for a very fanciful name for that. So we need to increase the number of our workspaces. So at one time I was talking to a colleague my colleague in KKM. Can we help out? I was like representing a particular institution that they want to open the menu. It's actually a school, right? An international school. So they want to open up the venue for the possibility, okay, to serve, to help, to assist, to create more workspaces in Subang, Wangsa Maju, and many other places like in Penang and Johor and so forth, where they have branches at. So it's like here in this case, venturing to get the private community, private entities to assist, in addition to workspaces already secured via private hospitals, private clinics, for example, government clinics, clinic kesihatan, as well as government hospitals. So we want to have more workspaces so that the vaccination numbers could have increased and to fulfill that so-called 1.5 years or even earlier. So it's just, I'm just postulating this possibility. So we have to backtrack and find out, are these SMART, are these numbers realistic? So we put that into the project charter. We will fine-tune our project charter as time goes along. Okay, because as we know, as we go deeper into planning, we get better and better and better accuracy. Don't plan too far ahead of time. Plan for the immediate. The closer that you are. The further you are, things are very volatile. Yes, we may have a blueprint for 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, but we know things change like every 6 months or even every 3 months. So it's like a moving average. We move along the way. Okay, make our adjustments. So there could be what we call change requests. In construction, they call it variation order, VO. So even if we have change requests, we have to go through a formal procedure of having a change control board. In some institutions, they call it a steering committee or a change committee, whatever it is. But as far as the Project Management Institute is concerned, they call it the Change Control Board, CCB. CCB, Change Control Board, which would be the customer, senior management, but not the project manager or the team members, for them to deliberate to find out whether they need additional time, whether they want to approve the change or not, whether it's useful change or not, that kind of thing. Additional time, additional funding, and so forth. So let the CCB decide that. So there's some kind of a mechanism or governance that need to be in place, to need to be as part of the infra before you venture or go into a project, right? Now, you are seeing 49 processes. Are we going to use all the 49 processes? Definitely no. There's this concept that we always tell people. We have tailoring. We tailor the number of processes pertaining to the project we are undertaking in terms of complexity or the length or the need for compliances of this and that. Just compare. Just take a look. You are running a project. Basically, conducting a birthday project. A birthday party is actually a project because there's a start date and a finish date. You have to send your invites, you know, you have to get an RSVP or even your own 50th anniversary or 50th birthday, you know, those grand things. So there are things that you're going to look into, right? Or even a wedding itself is a project itself, right? Okay. So that's the start date and the finish date. And there are KPIs that we fulfill, deadlines, milestones that we have to do. We won't be using 49 processes as you can see here, or like a wedding project or a birthday party, an elaborate birthday party. We won't. We only mix and match that's needed. So there's a Malay saying, what they call it, bahasa pepatah, that says that ukur baju di badan sendiri, which brings to mind, actually, we have to tailor-make our intensity, our effort, you know, in managing projects. How many processes, how deep are we going to go in? How elaborate is our compliance and regulating the project work and effort we put in that commensurate with the project we are undertaking, right? So just be smart, right? Tailoring, the concept of tailoring is that. Now, having said that, look at this. These are the 3 domains, and not in any order, not in any particular order. There will be the people domain, which is basically stakeholders, project manager, project team members, as well as stakeholders. Stakeholders are people or even institutions that have some kind of a vested interest in your project. It can be positive interest, it could be negative interest, those who resist the project, yeah? Or it could be fence sitters, basically those who are neutral. So we will be using processes or management areas pertaining to this will be on stakeholder management. Okay, stakeholder processes will be adequately used, communication management, as well as resource management, specifically the human resource part of it. So there's 1, 2, and then 3, dominantly being used for people. If you look at the 49 processes or the areas, we are looking at utilizing resource, specifically when we talk about this section here, which deals with human resources, communication, and of course the last part here, which is, sorry, I won't be able to, okay, stakeholder management. So upon creating the project charter, kick off the project, the next thing we'll do, the project manager would, of course, will have his or her pioneering team, the pioneer team of team members, so that they can, you know, start to get the ball rolling. Subsequently, there'll be more recruitment of human resources as time goes by and as when the need arises. Okay, so we have this core team, and this core team will help to identify, who are the players and who are the actors in the project, who are the ones against the project, who are in favor of the project, who are fence sitters. And when you talk about stakeholders, you know, if I would ask you a broad question, what is the most difficult thing to manage in the project? You'll definitely say that it's always been stakeholders, people, right? People, or institutions, basically it's people, because people are the ones who make decisions, right? And why is that so? Because we know that there can be people who are resisting. They are supporting, that's fine, because they are moving on the same direction. But if they're resisting, they're going on the opposite direction. So why are they resisting? Is it because of poor awareness of the project, or because they have their own negative agenda, which is opposite to our project agenda? You know, it could be a personal agenda or political agenda for whatever reason that may be, or possibly they have been hoodwinked, or probably being carried away, or being I would say sabotaged. All right, to go against the project for reasons best known to them. So it is our prerogative as project managers and the team to work together to manage stakeholders rather than having stakeholders manage us. You get the idea? If the stakeholders managing us, we're not going anywhere, my friend. It will always be yes men Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. We're not going to go anywhere because we won't be exertive to do things that is right, that will bring value to the project. Always remember that the mantra, shall we call it a mantra, is that to us, is that whatever I do, you as a project manager must increase project success. This is what you are being given the task. Right? If it doesn't increase project success, why in the world am I doing it? Why am I pleasing people when it's not even bringing me closer to project closing and successful closing? I'm doing more extra work, but does not bring any value. I'm just being used to please people. That does not bring any or inching closer to project success. So we must know where our priorities lies. Okay, there will be a lot of chatter. When you run projects, I know you have a lot of chatter. Some will say this one, some will say this one, somebody should do this, I should do that, and they're all from senior people. But you have to filter the chatter, right? And know, okay, I'm a project manager. I'm being tasked to do this to ensure project success as per the mandated in the project charter. That's my duty. That's my wholesome duty. So I have a lot of chatter that does not bring me closer to the fulfillment of the project charter. Why am I entertaining it? Am I going to be a yes sir, no sir? Yes ma'am, no ma'am? I can't, right? So I have to put my foot down basically, right? I have to put my foot down, being directed with the project charter in mind, okay? There'll be a lot of chatters actually, right? Now, there are a lot of stakeholders. So the team, the initial team, the pioneering team, they will identify what are stakeholders, right? The important ones, which are key decision makers, and then the non-decision makers, that's basically the grassroots. I call it grassroots. The grassroots are just as important, but it's really the decision makers, the key stakeholders are the ones that make decisions that are even more important, that we should associate ourselves or manage, or rather interface or engage with them, building rapport with them even more closely, more intimately, shall we say it? So, right? So in a sense here, we would have to build strategies, knowing these key decision makers, what are their habits, what are their likes and dislikes, have a good assessment. What makes them tick? What can move them? What can move their cheese? Basically, I'm trying to say that. Okay. So basically, you're reading into body language, you're reading into your conversations with them, with the rapport with them. You start to create a mental picture on how you can, sorry to use the big word called manipulate the stakeholder to the desired and intended direction. So stakeholder management is about manipulating people, but in a good way. Of course, we're talking about in a good way because we want to align it to project success, value creation to the customer or to the project organization itself that's doing the project itself, right? It has negative connotations by using the word manipulation, but it is not our intention. So the team will come in, all right, this stakeholder, this key stakeholder, this sponsor, and so on, okay? How about those who are resisting, the key stakeholders that are resisting, okay, how do we manage them so that we bring them over to support us? Make them friends rather than let them be as enemies or fence-sitters. If you have more friends in your field, you'll be on a winning streak. You'll be on a winning streak. That's what we are trying to emphasize inside here. All right. So we will come up with a stakeholder engagement plan. Now, this is you need to be, for specific eyes only. Not everyone can see it, because if it falls into the wrong hands, wow, all hell breaks loose, my friend. Okay. So manipulation, okay, sorry, strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3. If the strategy 1 does not work with this person, try another strategy until you get it right. Or we can even, redo it. Okay? We exercise, we execute our stakeholder engagement strategy. If it does not achieve the effect that we wanted, right, we would relook at it, monitor, control, and go on strategy number 2, or maybe fine tune until we get it right. Right? So there's not always one strategy that will always be superb and will achieve its purpose. There could be some tweaking here and there. So that's why we have the monitoring and controlling process, which is in this case falls under monitor stakeholder engagement. So we fine tune. So what we have just discussed here is our stakeholder management. First, identify who they are, which category they belong to, resisting, neutral facilitators, or are they supporting, and which category are they in? Are they key decision makers, or are they just grassroots? And then determine what kind of strategy that can move them to support the project. We want them to be championing our projects, right? To wah our projects itself, right? To have more friends in our projects rather than people who are resisting. So there could be like road shows and things like mindset change management comes into play, right? We'll be using things like ADKAR. Some of you may have heard about this, which is actually changing mindset, or rather to switch people who are already in their comfort zone to move them to deliver, right? At CAR, A stands for is create awareness about this project. What value it brings to them, what kind of value does it bring to them, so that they get excited, how they would gain from it, It's always been like this, If they don't see what they can gain from it, they won't move a muscle, okay? Right? What is in for them? Of course, in a positive manner to the success of the company. So it's awareness, okay? Awareness. Yes. And then create a desire that they really want to move forward. So that's a burning, motivating desire, they say, that influences them. So we leverage on that, we hook on it. Provide them the knowledge about what this project is, right? And how it will be fitting them, so that the interest keeps, they will tie on to the interest. If you need be, if there is a hands-on, or getting them involved in meetings, conferences, they speak, or they become one of the panelists or whatever, get them in the involvement. Okay, actually it's called ability. Okay, the ability for them to get involved, so that they are in the heat of things of the project. So there is some kind of formation of ownership, and being recognized and being contributing to the project. So they feel that they are actively participating in it, okay? And they feel good about it. And of course, the continual reinforcement, okay, that for this change momentum to continue. It's just not doing one time at CAR and then just throw up your hands and then, okay, it's done. No, it's an ongoing process. Right? It's an ongoing process. I think our friends from the KKM have been doing a good job about this, where I can see that it's happening for the to dispel the phobia or the resistance to change, the resistance to take the vaccine, right? The anti-vaxxers, and for whoever, whatever their reasons are to not taking the vaccine, So the KKM has been on a road show or through informatics, to enlighten, to create awareness. So basically, they're doing ADKAR in a way, right? In a way, so that there will be a road show of, telling people the awareness. And what if you do not have that? What will happen? If you have this, what will happen? That kind of thing, And when they would inject it with specialist advice from other countries, success stories from other countries, that it actually reinforces, in a way, can be called a reinforcement. Reinforces our change agenda. It's actually positive and correct. So things the ADKAR model, negotiation techniques are also part and parcel of stakeholder as well as communication. Now, knowing people, okay, coming from different background, right? Key decision makers who have kind of fancy requirements or expectations. Somebody will say that, okay, you give me updates, fine. As part of stakeholder engagement, give them an update, get them involved, let them be in the loop, that kind of thing. And then they say that, okay, you don't have to send me reports. You just WhatsApp it to me, what's happening. Or some of them, they'll say that, you give me a face-to-face, I want to see I want to talk to you face-to-face. Some of them say, just send me an email will do, or just give me a phone call. So there are many medium of communication. We talk about medium of communication. You talk about the frequency of communication, how often we need to update these people, okay, and also getting their responses accordingly. As far as what information do we going to release, the depth and the breadth of information to release to stakeholders. That's where in the people domain we leverage on communications. We have to develop what I call a communications management plan with the stakeholders which we had already identified, right? Alongside with this, right? Who are the stakeholders? Key, especially the key decision makers. What are their needs and expectations? The communication technology to use, how frequent they want it to be, what kind of details we want to give them, how often you want to have it, all these parameters. One husband, 5 wives, or they call it how, when, who, which, where, whatever. All those questions, those critical questions we ask ourselves. It's all built into a communications management plan for every one of the stakeholder in this case. Of course, you're referring to the key decision makers. And we dispense the information. We distribute the information as and when it's needed, when it's required. We actually disseminate the information. And when it gets to the other party, make sure there's acknowledged that they have received in kind. And also if they come with a reply and they're saying that, okay, I would like, you have given me this part of the information. I would like to have more detail about this section. Please furnish me about this pertaining to this area only. So the focus area, communication. So this is something that you gather, which is actually a feedback, right, from the recipient, that we go back, take out your crystal report or generate specific report detail on that section that they are interested in, and we generate and pass it to them. So it's this kind of set of activities that sits inside the communications management. And we all know people come and go. Just like stakeholders, and they come and go. Some of them retire, some of them resign, new people come in. So it's always very dynamic. And as such, our stakeholder register or the stakeholder list is also dynamic. Same goes with communication and many other stuff. Talking about resources, here we are talking about the team members ourselves. I remember I've said about our core team, our pioneering team. They come in, yes. But subsequently, we will have, to identify, hey, now we have a project charter. We know what our milestones are. We know the scope. We know exactly some of the metrics that we have. Let us try to do what we call a preliminary requirements. Right? Let's collect requirements. So collecting requirements falls under scope management, right? Where it's basically the SOP for scope management, collecting requirements. And then we define narrative of the requirements, So what is this project supposed to be? Destination, okay. So what's the scope of it? What does it do? What is the KPIs and so forth? It's just a narrative, just a narrative. And we create a work breakdown structure. It's called WBS. So it's actually a visual representation. So you may have a project. Okay, this is a project, and you break it down, the big project, into smaller constituent units for easier management and what I call delegation later on. So there are subsets or subtasks, sub-work, some people call it, that kind of thing. So we are breaking it down so that into smaller pieces of work that does not overwhelm one particular person or team. So they could be discrete by themselves, different parcels of work, specific to certain work and so on. So what we are seeing is that, so we can see branches, right? Or shall we call it roots or branches, whichever we look at it. So the end of every branch, this is the end of every branch, right? So this is the parent to these two children. So this is the end of the branch, this is the end of the branch, likewise this. All these shaded areas, we give a special name. We call them work packages. Okay. under this work breakdown structure. So this is the structure itself, the drawing itself is called work breakdown structure, WBS in short, this one here. Right? So these are the children basically, right? Which is the end of line, the end of the line. Right? So in scope, they are known as work package. When we move into schedule or activity building or costing, we call it differently. We call them the same work package, we give them a different label. We call them activities. That's where the activity comes from. And we are actually pulling all these activities and string them, you know, whether it should be done in a series or whether it should be done in parallel or not, you know. So that's where your schedule activities, you know, defined activities actually already we have to define from the work package. We sequence them, how should be done. Some of them running in parallel, some activities are running in parallel, in series and so on. Thereafter, estimating the duration, and we get our what we know as called the Gantt chart, the schedule, the map, the mapping of time for every one of those activities or work packages. How long does it take? Start and finish. So that's how we build our schedule from there. From where? From what? From the work breakdown structures, work packages. So it's a distilling, it's like what I call it, desynthesizing a big project into smaller constituents or decomposing them into smaller constituent units. So we need to know this. We need to know the WBS. Once you have the WBS, you know, okay, all right, this work, okay, we need a person who has this skill, construction skill, with this kind of years of experience, you know, to do this work well. We need 2 engineers, or we need these tools, we need this equipment, we need this kind of facility for each of the activity or work packages. That's how we can plan or estimate our activity resources for both physical resources, which are like equipment, materials, you know, facilities, you know, like allowances, you know, hotel accommodation needed for every one of those work packages, as well as the human resource requirement. Engineers, whoever they are, whether engineers, you need a trainer, whatever is pertaining to the particular work package or activity. And we get them in. We acquire those human resources, both physical as well as the human resources. Now, if the human resources, you don't expect that the moment they are hired, they can do the work immediately. No, you have to develop them, right? We have to teach them. There's, of course, there's onboarding, but beyond onboarding are things like, for example, there is this thing here called, you know, if you learn the resource management content in my class, we will see that there are actually 2 things running in parallel. One is called the team development. Okay, the team develops first. They have to form the team, forming the team. Then they call it norming, storming. I think is it? Am I correct? Okay, storming, norming, performing. Then once you finish the project, we call it adjourn, your RN. So this is a phase, team maturity phases. But equally important, we must suit our project management leadership style to where the team member is at, what maturity. In the forming team, in the formation maturity, we will be more directing them to do this, do that, do this, do that. No questions asked. In bahasa ikut arahan saja, jangan tanya banyak-banyak, okay? You do not know why we do this, but I'm just telling you, do this, just follow orders first. Until there be a time whereby you start to, under storming, you start to get some idea, the learning curve starting to come, okay? And then we start to do coaching, holding their hands, explaining why we have to do this, why we do that. Previously, I cannot tell you why because you wouldn't understand, but now you have seen how things are being done, then you can get some ideas, some glimpses why we are asking you to do this, then this, then this. So we are holding the hands. We are doing coaching and mentoring. Okay. Now, norming here is that here you are just providing them support. You're more supportive. Okay. Because norming here, they are already starting to know each other. They're able to learn. They're able to have a very steep learning curve. But you still need to support them. You still need to direct them what to do. Still holding their hands. But still, I think you actually pacing down, you're directing them. You know, your coaching requires support and directing them. But when you're norming, you are still continue to support, encouraging them, but you are tapering down your direction. You're directing them because you are, you know, you're going to move into entrusting them later on. Because when they are high performing, they're really good in their work already. They can work autonomously on their own. So here you do not need to support them anymore, neither do you need to direct them anymore. You are using what I call entrusting. Okay, entrusting leadership style, fully entrust. Because if you are still being buggy, it's still bothering them, you know, telling them, no, you shouldn't do this, do that, and they are already in the performing maturity. You know, imagine if you are in that kind of situation here, how will you feel, right? Like a boss always looking over your shoulders, knowing full well that you have 20 years behind your belt doing this work. It's very degrading, isn't it? That's right. So that's why this thing is called, that's the name for it, Hershey's and Blanchard situational leadership style. Whereas this one, which is a different theory, is known as Bruce Tuckman team development phases, or team maturity. And we all know not everyone in the team mature or can pick up at the same pace. Some are fast learners, some are slow learners. So in this case here, it won't be a collective team management leadership style, but rather more an individual. So the manager, project manager, that's you, will manage the team members individually pertaining to their growth stage. If they're still forming, then another team member is already in the performing, you have to treat them differently. We cannot just a one sweep, one size fits all. It doesn't. Okay, that's where we have problem. When people are already in performing and you are still directing them as if they are in the forming, no wonder there's conflict, a mismatch of leadership style. You're micromanaging them. You shouldn't. Micromanaging them in the forming and storming, fine, but not in performing or norming. Oh, sorry, not in performing. Okay. So adjourning meaning here, when the project finishes, they adjourn, or maybe move on to another project and start over again, right? So these are things that we learn in resource management. We develop the team, we manage the team, you know, as goes by and under executing. You ask them, you know, what went well with you, what went wrong with you, are there anything that we can support you, you know, in addition, you know, so that they can perform the work well, you know, without any lack. You know? Maybe the sharing resources, whatever that may be, you know, to help each other out. So managing the team may involve things like team appraisal as well as individual level appraisals. So individual level appraisals are things like 360-degree feedback, you know, what went well, what went wrong, how we can support you. Appraisals like, oh yeah, don't forget, reward and recognition system must be built into the resource management. So we work very closely with HR department, right? Because we are working in a strong matrix where the coexisting of project people as well as functional people, but the project people are getting more power than the functional people. They are coexisting. We still have need for human resources, legal department, procurement department, and so on. And when we recruit people, we have to ensure that we have already established the recognition rewards, their succession planning, their team development, the classes or certification they need to go through the period of time to excel in their work, you know, that kind of thing, and the due recognition that's due to them for certain KPIs that they have met, so they get motivated, inspired, and so forth, right? So these are all the things that we cover under resource management, managing and developing the team. So control resources, we all know that also when there are conflicts that happen amongst the resources, human resources here, that's where you have conflict management. There are 5 kinds of conflict management techniques, you know, which we put inside our resource management course material. So we have to look at whether are we going to problem solve, good cause, okay? Or we collaborate, or we call it compromise, compromise, or should we force, or should we withdraw, or we just, in this case here, what's the other word, smoothing here, taking one day at a time, you know, but it will be a lasting solution, that kind of thing. It's like sweeping things under the carpet for the moment. It's called smoothing. So there are 5 kinds of conflict management techniques that we learn under control resources. So that basically covers our discussion on just the project, on the people element itself. So you can see that we actually, some of the, many of the 3 areas are actually, the 3 areas, which is stakeholder, as well as the other one here is known as resource, particularly the HR version, which is actually process orientated. Okay, so that draws me finish the topic on people domain. So my next domain I want to talk to you about is process. Now in process domain, it is to cover those we have not covered. Okay, the remainder of all of the other stuff. So we have covered scope to some degree, scope, let's go further to see what's happening here. Now, remember, let's backtrack a bit. When we had a project charter, the birth certificate of the project, and we have identified who our stakeholders are, right? To know, our interfacing with them, how do we engage with them. The next thing we'll do is basically to find out, okay, let us come and create plans. Plans, of course, usually we start from the scope. That's why once you got your WBS, we can plan for other things like schedule, we can plan because they leverage on activities, Costing also leverages on activities. You don't have activities, how to do costing, right? So you must know what activities are. So everything hinges on the scope or the WBS. So if the WBS is done in not an elaborate way or not complete, there'll be a lot of change requests at the end of the day to identify work that we have missed out, a lot of hassle, a lot of wasted time. So try to do things right the first time as much as you can, Of course, there will be some flaws here and there, that's fine, but just keep it to the minimum as we'll do. Do it right the first time, should be our approach, our ideology, shall we call it. So we get our schedule, we have spoken about it. And once we've got a schedule, we know the timing, once we've got a timing, we know how many resources we need to have, right? The number of resources, because we get it from here, right? That's under resource, because we have covered that under people already. We know the resources, both physical and human resources. Then we know for how long we're going to use those resources for, human resources. If they're contract staff, we know how long we need, our budget for their resources. We can do budgeting. If we are buying things like equipment, materials, or whatever that may be, we know how many units and when we need to buy it and what season of on-peak season, kind of thing. And we know the pricing per unit, we can determine how much it will cost, estimated cost, before we commit ourselves. So we can build the costing numbers. Now, what is budget? Budget is actually the costing numbers that we have created, the estimated cost we have created for every work package, for every activity. Sum it up and put in what we call a cost reserve, a buffer. I mean, if you're doing risk management, there is even more extensive calculation using quantitative risk analysis. We can actually establish how much money you need to set aside. Not just only saying that, oh, how much is this project? 1 million. Oh, let's set aside 10%. That's enough, 100,000. 100,000 is our buffer for anything that may happen. No. If you're doing risk management quantitative, we actually can learn how much dollar, how much cent to set aside for the risk expectation of a project to the dollars and cent level, rather than doing this plain percentage. It's going to be very accurate. These are things that is being used in actuarial science, insurance science. We're actually borrowing those ideas from them, right? They call it expected monetary value, all these technical terms along the way. So we also cover that inside the risk management cost material, where we identify what are the risks, the positive and negative risks we talk about, right? Qualitative, quantitative, I think you know the difference, right? The quantitative is always the best one, but in reality, sometimes we may not have quantitative data. We have to work with qualitative at the moment, right? Before we upsize or upgrade ourselves to the quantitative data, which is more accurate. And along the way, we develop what are the risk responses. In the case of this threat risk happen, what is a risk response to it? There are 5 kinds of risk responses, right? And implementing risk responses. And of course, risk can come and go. Sometimes those low risk may become high risk over time or high impact over time. So I have this fascination, always relating risk, threat risk to medicine. I don't know. I think I'm in the wrong line. I have this kind of parallelism, concurrent thoughts with medicine, pharmaceutical stuff. I think I'm in the wrong line. Anyway, just to put things into perspective, it's something like this. Threat risk, Now we know that. Let's suppose, let me give you a hypothesis, okay, in risk management. Risk management have this kind of behavior, and medicine are very closely related to my layman knowledge. Okay, let's suppose you have sore throat and you go and see a doctor. Doctor, I have sore throat, and then the doctor look at it. Oh, that's inflamed. Okay, so you look at your tonsils. Oh, it's inflamed. Okay, and then you have fever. All right. So the doctor prescribe you. Okay, you take these antibiotics. Are you allergic to this and that? No. Okay, so I give you these antibiotics, and this is the fever medicine, and this is lozenges. Okay, that will help you to soothe the pain and give you some relief. Okay, so continue to finish these things, and off you go. So 2 days, 3 days later, you're good, fine and dandy, right? And you go about doing your work. A few days later, the same thing, the same symptom came back again. The sore throat came back again, the fever came back again. Maybe not as bad as before, but it came, okay? It came back. And you went back to the doctor. Doctor, what is happening? Your medicine not good, eh? What will the doctor say? Have you finished your antibiotics? I gave you 4 days or 3 days. Oh, you just finished 2 days, right? Yeah, I finished already. 2 days, I'm good already. I don't need to eat already, man. No, it doesn't work this way. The antibiotics actually comes in to kill the root, to pull out that root that has been causing you that sore throat in the first place. You have just suppressed it in 2 days, but normally it would be the 3rd day you would have killed off the root, you have removed and put out the root, so it will not come back again. That's the idea. So what you're seeing is that there is some residual risk. Okay, so new term for you in risk management. There is this thing here called residual, sakibaki, yang masih ada risk that did not kill, you did not clear them off, you cannot remove the root. That's why it came back to haunt you again and again and again and again. So that's residual risk. So things like this do happen. Kind of behavior. I'm not saying all the time, but yes, be ready for it. Residual risk. Have you dealt with the root cause? The second thing is you have taken the antibiotics. Okay, the second scenario, you're very cautious. You took the whole thing, right? And the fever, the sore throat, all disappeared, right? But you found there are spots on your body, itchiness here and there. I go back to the doctor. I suspect you have allergy. I give you the antihistamine for you to control the allergy, the antihistamine. So that what you're seeing is that you have removed the fever, sore throat, but it comes up with another kind of medical risk. In this case, allergy and spots and itchiness. So what is that called? It is called secondary risk. So these are the 2 kind of properties that can appear, in threat risk. All right, with opportunity, no big deal. Opportunity we welcome. Whether it's residual opportunity, it's still opportunity. Right? It's always good, but it's always the threat that's where we are very careful of, right? So that's what I'm saying here. Risk can come and go. The intensity and the impact can also fluctuate, So we must be on our toes to monitor the risk. How many risks do we have in this project? Could be 100 over. Oh my goodness, how are we going to monitor 100 over risks? We have other things to do. Me and my team has other things to do. Yes, in some organizations, they actually have a department, especially just to monitor risk management department. There are some banks, they have operational risk. But that's operational risk, right? They have. because it's too overwhelming. Now, knowing that there are too many risks, we can't afford to cover all risks. That's why we have to, prioritize the risk: high risk, low risk, medium risk. So we have to drop our guards down sometimes. Drop our guards down. We only monitor the high risk, the red light ones. Those are above certain criteria. The one in medium, it happens. The green one, it happens at low risk. So that's why we expect our risk reserve, our buffer, our cost buffer to attend to it. So these are things that we have to give and take. So we have covered what? We have covered risk rating, right? And procurement is just to make purchases of physical goods at the time when we have. So when we conduct procurement, are things like when you're going to buy it, from which vendor, if it's going to a tendering, what is the tendering process, our SOP, that you work together with the procurement department, right? We must follow them. We are not going to supersede their SOPs, right? We are working in line with them. We supplement, we complement them. The types of contracts, whether it's a cost plus contract, fixed price contract, or is it time and material contracts, kind of thing. And of course, the procurement or even procurement of services from a third party, like outsourcing or vendor, we also have to manage them as well, as if we are the client to them. So we have pretty much covered schedule, cost. Now quality, we have spoken a bit about that, managing quality and so on, where we talk about quality metrics and so forth. Now, one thing I want to address to you is this. Whenever a milestone has been achieved, your team has created some deliverables, right? You want to get the customer to sign off, right? We are not going to get them to sign off at the very last of the deliverable. No, we do it on incremental, phase out, the milestones. We don't group everything at the last day, on the day of handover. What if the customer says, no, it's not complete? You've got to go back to square one, So it's better to have it in phases. Although it's time consuming, it's better that way, okay? To slice it into phases or milestones or stages as we go. As we complete each stage or milestone, we get the customer to sign off. But before we get the customer to sign off, we have to verify the work is good, with the data that we have produces the expected outcome. Where is it being done? Is accomplished in under control quality. This one here. Okay. We do all the measurements and so forth. Everything's fine. Okay. We are confident. We have verified our work, our deliverables. We have verified our deliverables. Now we give it to the customer to validate the work. Well, imagine if the customer validates the work and found out there's error. How embarrassing it will be to us, isn't it, right? So we make sure that we try to be on the correct side first, the correctness of the work that we do before we invite the customer to get the sign off. So that it's a higher chance of signing off. They don't find faults with us, basically, because we have done our homework, right? And then got to sign off. So let's close one milestone. So the accumulation of all these milestones and thing here will eventually come to the closing the project or closing the phase in its entirety. That's what we, at the end of the day, is final acceptance of the customer. That's our end game, acceptance by customer for all the work we have done. So that's our goal in sight. Okay, our goal in sight, just like Stephen Covey, have your goal in sight, right? So that's the habits of a successful person. Have a goal in sight, it is to get the acceptance done. But we do it progressively so that we can arrest any deficiencies and correct it, right? Before being CD and accumulate everything and get a customer sign off, which may not happen that well, right? So with all these plans that has been created, they're all compiled into one book, or shall we call it a user manual. All those plans under planning, right? So we put them into a ring binder, whatever it is, and we give a special name for it. What's it known? It is known as the project management plan. So this is called as the project management plan. That consists of all the plans that we have, the baselines, we call it baselines, right? So the next day, upon approval by senior management or sponsor, we can execute the work as per the baseline in the project management plan. So we direct and manage project work. And at the same time, we are also acquiring knowledge as time goes by. We're actually acquiring knowledge from day one, from initiating all the way to closing, right? That will eventually come come into the closing here, where we put in as lessons learned. Very few organizations produce lessons learned because they find out what for. Project's already done already. But they forgot that one thing is that this project may repeat itself, or it could be enhancement. It could be a tool whereby those lessons learned could equip the next team to know what are the mistakes we did before. Which vendor went well, which vendor was useless, you know. I mean, the best practices are actually best practices as well as our mistake practices, okay, are also documented, what went well, what went wrong in lessons learned. So it's something that's valuable. It's knowledge management, you know, my friend. It's project knowledge. As we accumulate through our minutes of meetings, you know, our discussions, so on, we are actually accumulating a lot of knowledge, right? That's why we have lessons learned. We must have an archive, a way whereby we keep knowledge. Otherwise, project managers and core team members can leave the company, can come and go, right? When they go, it means they're bringing along the project knowledge about your project away. So the next person coming in, the project manager that fills up the position, will be going on from square one. Unless the person tracks back from project charter onwards and goes through. But if that knowledge is not captured, you know, you're missing a major bulk and why things are done this way, and what are the, you know, the DNA of the project. You know, we need to feel the pulse of the project. Even you come in to replace another person. So that's why project knowledge, you know, as we accumulate it. I'm not talking about lessons learned. Lessons learned is when the project is finished, so it's too late. We talk about lessons or knowledge. There is a thing what we call lessons learned register that we accumulate. We fill it up from the day we start the project until the day we close. We fill it up. It's only when we come to closing project, we compile it and archive all the lessons learned into a document created by the project team and project manager. Okay. So as it is, there are when we have change request, you know, comes in CCB. Yeah, we talk about CCB right over here. So that's the activity of 4.6. And we monitor and control project work. You know, make sure everything follows the baseline and so forth. So we have basically covered all actually integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder in this short discussion on processes. So we have covered on this area. So the next step I will go into is the business environment. Okay, now moving into business environment, we have only 4. What we have only this business environment is not inside here. It is something in addition to the first two domains, which has been what people have been studying for the PMP prior to 2021, which is the people and process, which is basically this, all of this, right? But the business environment has very little element that was inside this component. So it's in addition. So let me bring you to the business environment, right? But before I go to that, right, let me sum it up first. Remember, we talk about people, right? Now, in the people domain, with this new syllabus, the PMI suggests that this is the way it should be run. Workflow. We build a team, the core team, remember, right? Then we give the team rules or team charter, shared understanding, agreements among ourselves, the team members, empower our team members, be a project manager, empowering them with knowledge, training, coaching, remember to talk about that, you know, onboarding and so on. And going through that, the different phases of team development and so on. Now, there is also things that virtual team members may come in, right? They do not need to be co-located. Co-located meaning here being in the same room with them. Actually, a face-to-face is always the best form of communicating in a team, where we have them into a war room or project site office. But there are cases whereby some projects do not require people to be present. They can work from home or work from different countries, right? Because of the cost factor, maybe it's business because of that also. They can support virtual teams. Nowadays, it's very, very common. And of course, continue with this, okay? collaborate. So we have a lot of stakeholder management activities leading the team, or the leadership style that we have just learned, right? Removing blockers, things that could impede the smooth running and communication with the team. Supporting, give them support, coach, direct, support as and when. Make sure we follow the Hershey's and Blanchard levels. There's conflict that can arise. The 5 different conflict resolution techniques are also probably practiced, right, under the monitor resources. The mentoring, right, and of course here the continual enhancement of team members through. This is a very key EI, emotional intelligence. All right, emotional intelligence, people domain. Now, we are using 2 kinds of project management right now. One is called the predictive, and the other one is called agile. Whichever one it is, there is a strong push towards what we call a leadership style known as servant leadership. Okay. In the shortest way I'll explain this, it's like, although you are a superior, you have subordinates under you, which are your team members. You don't flex your muscle, all right? You don't flex your ego. You are humbling yourself in a way, professionally humbling yourself to their level without any air of egoism, right? You can say things like this in your mind or the way how you communicate them. Yes, I'm your boss, true. But I'm your boss who is also serving you, right? I'm your boss. I'm in this wonderful position because I'm able to solicit resources, right? Resources and network for us to do and run this project smoothly along with you, among with you guys. So don't look at me as like boss, subordinate kind of mindset that used to be like 30, 40 years ago, yes, but not now. Regard me as a person who is resourceful in a very strategic position to help you to win and pull the ropes and pull cables for you guys. I'm your friend. Treat me as one of yours. That kind of civil leadership, right? You are like filling the person's shoes, the team member's shoes, as if you are of them and with them. That is where your humility, that's where empathy, which is a subset of emotional intelligence, comes in. And that's the way we should move. It doesn't mean that we are soft. It doesn't mean that we are losing our power or our assertiveness and they will, doormat us or they will step over our heads. No. If you have this kind of mindset, you're not fitting of become a project manager. We are going to move towards, to be frank with you, right? The role of a project manager will eventually diminish because we are moving towards empowering the team member to be self-organizing and autonomous themselves. They manage among themselves without having a project manager. And this is what you're seeing in agile project management. In agile project management, you don't have a project manager. You have a scrum master. Yes, a scrum master basically is just a resource person that can assist you to provide services and so on. But agile, your team members themselves are the project managers themselves. Of course, you cannot have more than one manager in the project, right? It's like having the spirit of understanding among themselves. The discipline, the trust. If you do not have team members that have the kind of personality or the kind of thinking, the kind of philosophy, agile management, project management cannot work. All right? So in process, we have this domain, right? Scoping, see? We start from scope, where you create your WBS number From there, you can do your budgeting, you can do your scheduling, you know, all the quality, everything comes from your WBS actually, right? You can see that, your procurement, you know. So once you come to here and say, okay, ask yourself, should we do predictive project management or should we do agile? Now, or some people call it adaptive project management. Predictive means you must have all the requirements 100%, or at least close to 100%, all the requirements known first, upfront. Then we do our planning. Then we execute. Then we deliver at the end of the day. One-time delivery, one go, one shot. Or maybe there could be different phases or milestones, okay? Whatever it is one go. But in Agile, it's different because the requirements are not steady. The requirements, they come in trickle. They come in 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. Over time, we cannot wait for 100% for it to accumulate because that will take a long time. As a matter of fact, the customer gives you the requirements as and when they feel it is needed. So we have a different platform altogether, right? We cannot have all the requirements upfront, and therefore we cannot plan holistically. So whatever requirements we have, we do that work first. Or whatever requirements we have at hand, we plan out, we execute, we deliver. Okay, no subsequent one comes in, we plan, execute, we deliver. We plan, execute, we deliver. So we have batches of delivery, and we have given special names for it. We call it Sprint 1, Sprint 2, Sprint 3, Sprint. In time frames of 4 weeks, for example, 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So whatever requirements or tasks that need to be performed in that sprint, we deliver that one first. You cannot finish the task, we dump it to the next sprint. That means there are some backlogs there. So this is the ideology or the methodology, how agile or adaptive project management works. Yes, there could be wastages. Some sprints could be superseding the previous sprints because there are better requirements later on. So subsequent, the previous requirements may be flawed or maybe too minimal. So the better one comes in later on. It's possible. So there can be wastages and redoing that supersedes the others. It's possible. Well, what can we do? That's how the project is such, right? So we are not going to say that predictive is better or agile is better. No, it's the requirements the customer needs, and when the requirements comes in, are we all coming in complete or are they in trickle forms? If they're trickling in, then agile cannot run away. Of course, there is the one that is in the middle. Both predictive and agile can coexist. We call it hybrid project management. So it's a choice. You can have predictive, you can agile, no? So predictive is something like this. You construct a house. So there's SOP, construct a house. You cannot build the roof before creating the landscape or before creating the foundation, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? So you do from ground up, right? Substructure, the superstructure, and then you have the roof, and then you have landscaping and interior design. May come in the later part. So as far as interior design, let's say there are 3 things. Putting in built-in cabinets, carpeting, and wallpapering. Let's say three major parcels, right? In interior design, we can make it agile. It doesn't have to be predictive. If predictive, it will be this way. I put in the cabinet, then later I put in the wallpapering, then finally the carpeting. Makes sense, right? But what if the cabinet carpenter says that I cannot deliver today, right? You do other things first. And the other thing will be the wallpapering and the carpeting. So obviously we go out and get the wallpapering guy come in. And when the cabinet ready, carpenter is ready, then he will put in and close up the wallpaper behind the cabinet. So there will be wastages on the wallpaper there. Well, that's the wastage. What do you do? But still it's agile. We're accommodating, right? Against the vendor's availability, or impromptu availability. What if the wallpaper says, no, I cannot, I'm not free also. So you're only left with carpeting. So the carpenter lay the carpet, ensure there is extra layer of protective layer, because people will step on it when they do the cabinet and do the wallpapering. So we're still flexible here. We're still be able to be agile, to be adaptive. Although we would like it to be predictive, but we can flex the muscle a bit. We can flex it a bit. Okay. So in this case, we have a combination of these two, which is in this case, I did something that's predictive, I did something that's agile, and thus we call this a hybrid. So that's why you have these terms like the methodology, the methods and practices. So we have the governance, compliance and things, and we have how do we plan and ensure closing, verifying and validation, things of that nature, right? Making sure everything is based on business value. Communication is important, right? Managing the risk, engaging, stakeholder engagement, making sure artifacts are assets. And when there are CCB involved, change control board or project changes or they call it change request comes in, and outstanding issues which are risk that has happened, that we have to deal with it. It could be negative issue, usually negative issues. The issues won't be positive. Positive is actually a bonus to us. And of course, making sure that knowledge is captured and will be compiled as a lessons learned. Okay? So this is basically the workflow. Now, whatever I'm showing here does not mean, it must follow prescriptively like this. Sometimes we do this work up to here, and then they may go back to this and rerun these parts, go to here, and then over here, maybe rerun something here to fine tune, So it's not prescriptive as per se. It is recursive, meaning it can run several times, as well as iteratively, can look back, right? And can also overlap. But as such, we have to model it. Well, we model it as if it is in this format, as if it's a straight line, but it does not necessarily mean it's so prescriptive as it is. You see it on the screen. Okay, so coming back to the business environment, we have the plan. So this is in addition that we have to learn. Plan, manage, project compliance. So we have to build in a compliance system in there. The SOPs for that, the infrastructure. What standard are we following? Compliance. How do we deliver? How do you measure the delivery of the value incrementally? So it ties in very closely with the quality management, right? It's also things that we have stated inside the project charter anyway, right? And of course, understanding what are the hostile things that may come to disrupt your plans, your business value plans, your business creation plans, your business environment that may affect in a negative sense. So we have elements of risk management, but on the business environment. What do you foresee in the next 3 months? What do you foresee in the 6 months? What do you foresee in the pandemic session here? Will there be normalcy again or not? Okay, that means we are going to put in our glasses to see the vision of the future and do the necessary evasive or corrective or preparation in the event we may have a backup plan 1 and backup plan 2, that kind of thing, contingency plans. So it also relates much on risk management, but more on the business perspective and value, right? And organizational change here will be the mindset change. We talk about account model, right? As well as things like negotiation techniques that goes along tying together with people also. And sometimes we have to negotiate for resources, negotiate with people, and so forth. So in a nutshell, we have just completed business environment per se. Now, looking back, if you look at the breakdown of exam questions, if you're taking the exam itself, you will see that processes related questions, they constitute 50%. So in the exam, there are 180 questions. There can be multiple choice, there can be many other formats, but you have to deliver in about how many minutes? 230 minutes. I think we can see that on the last slide. And 42 will be on people domain, and 8%, we just covered that one, is 8%, right, on the business environment side. So the exam format for those who are taking the PMP post 2021, there will be more or less equal split between agile and predictive, which also can fall within the hybrid approach we just talked about on the 3 domains. 180. Right, previously was 200. Now they ask you for ask for 230 minutes, right? I think 230 minutes would be adequate for you. So you pace yourself, one question, 1.2 minutes. That is on average, but try to pace yourself 1 minute, one question. Some questions are a bit longer, some questions are short. So there's always a balance between the two. Now, there is no paper-based exams in Malaysia, unfortunately. In China, yes. So there are two kinds of computer-based tests. You can have it in Malaysia. One is you do it from home, online exam tests. Okay, there are certain criteria or SOP for that. Or you can have it at a testing center, Pearson View testing center, where you attend and sit for that 230 minutes question and over with. Okay, so it can be a combination of multiple choice, A, B, C, D, multiple response, matching, hotspot, or they call it fill in the blank or drag and drop. Okay, so there is both agile and predictive lessons or questions in the exam format. So with this, I conclude my clinic. Any further questions will be taken offline. All right. Thank you very much for your time, and that is what we have covered in project management in an hour and a half, I suppose. All right. Thank you, and goodbye.